Okay, now I'm in. Hi,
Hi,
Matt.
Jeff.
I just got in. I don't know what happened. Austin texted me that he's having trouble. Here-
Austin appeared and then disappeared, so I'm not
uh-huh.
sure if it's internet or what.
Here comes Adrian. Valerie said she'll hop on.
How's it going, everybody?
Hi,
Hi.
Adrian.
Nice.
I tried to get in like 3 or 4 minutes ago. I don't know what if you didn't see me.
I was having the same problem, Adrian.
Oh, okay. All right. How's everybody doing?
Fair enough. How about you?
Old man getting older every day.
Oh my gosh, don't go there, Adrian. Do not go there.
Don't tell your knees.
I'm way ahead of you on that. I don't want to hear it.
Well, I can't tell, Kat. I can't tell.
Well, okay.
Adrian, I just emailed around a grid of possible changes to the calendar with all this, or I'm sorry, to the rules with all that we're doing. I'll email that to you, and when we're talking about it, I'll share screen so everybody can see it. And again, these are just items for us that I think in the standing rules we should consider.
These are, Mick, these are specifically appropriate to Civics Plus, right?
Some of them Civics Plus, some I think to our discussion here.
Okay. Right.
But yeah, and there's probably, as we dig in and I learn more about what Physics Plus is going to do, there might be more. But this is stuff that, this isn't a comprehensive list. It's the start of the list.
Right. Okay.
I have come across in the work we're doing so far.
Yeah, but no, I thank you.
So you're sending an email out right now?
Yeah, I just sent it to you just now. I had a partial list and then I just added a little bit to it, prettied up the table a little bit, bolded things.
Yeah, I'm gonna go look for that.
Valerie just texted and said that she is in the public.
Oh.
I'll grab her. Oh, there she is.
Possible changes grid. Very nice. Thank you.
Hi.
Hi. Thanks for coming, Valerie.
Hi, Valerie.
A few more minutes of Zoom won't kill anyone, right?
I have the feeling you live on it longer than I do, but I've been on a fair amount today.
Today was a long day, but
yeah.
Good to see you guys.
Thank you. Likewise. Yeah.
I'm giving myself a lot of credit teaching wise. Work because I have access to more stuff. I have 3 screens and a camera and a microphone. Getting professional.
Yeah. Hi, Austin. You made it.
Austin.
Everybody was having trouble getting on, Austin, so you're not alone.
I'll be right there. Just trying to figure this out. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
I like how Austin has the door in the background that he has to close everyone, and then the ghost opens it.
I have that too.
It's my cat. My cat opens it on me. That's why. So it's like,
so
it's like he's trying to get outside. So, but I apologize. Thanks.
That's what that is.
Yeah.
Okay. So, are we? I'm not aware of expecting anyone else, and we have a quorum of 2 out of the 3 of us. So I think we can start. And I'll call the meeting to order at 5:41. Let's see. I'm typing stuff as we go. And I see attending myself, Austin Caesar, Vice Chair, Mick McGarry, ex officio. I don't know if Burrita's coming. And additional council members are Valerie and Adrian. Thank you. And a committee member absent is Jody Klaus. So I I left the agenda intact as it was last time because we're still sort of feeling our way through and defining the work. And I am remiss in not having the notes. I submitted the minutes as required, and then I sent everybody on who was at the last meeting the notes, which had more detail in it. I think we established some goals and a timeline for completion that was in line with adopting Civics Plus. And I took on the review of the standing rules, and I just want to note a couple of things. I don't see a lot to be changed. I see some things to be enforced more appropriately, but I'm still looking. So I just wanted to say that. And does anybody else have any other observations about the standing rules?
So if it's okay with you, Kath, I'll share my screen and show that grid that I sent around to everyone.
Okay.
Because here there's, well, I guess these are a little beyond observations, but kind of a considering of, I just have to find the appropriate window here. Sorry. Here we are.
Good evening. My name is Mr. Caesar. Sorry about that. I had
Okay,
my computer. I apologize. I'm putting up something different.
that's all right.
Some of these are specific to civics clerk and some to, the considerations that I think we're kind of talking about. It might be changes that we should just sort of keep in mind. Section 11A, order and decorum, comments to the question under debate. Meetings are to be conducted in a business-like manner with proper decorum exhibited by all members, etc. And this seems to be kind of what we're talking about. And if we're creating a document, if we're creating like a policy, I don't know if we wish to expressly in the rules speak to what, decorum and business like, flesh that out a little bit. What does that mean to show decorum? What does that mean to be business-like?
Yeah, so Mick, I appreciate that. And I think you and I are in accord. It seems like that the rule is well expressed. And so it's the abiding by it that maybe we want to focus on. And I wonder if this gets to Burita, or no, who was it? I think it was Adrian last time who said, have some of these items in a statement of agreement that the council members have to sign. Adrian, I think that came from you.
It did.
Yeah.
Could it maybe be in our oath that we take that we're going to follow the rules of the council? I'm just throwing it out there as a possibility. Maybe it's something we include in our oath.
Isn't it amazing? Our oath is going to have to be like 20 pages long. Austin.
It's sad because it doesn't have to be, but it just unfortunately has to be.
I'm just.
It's I think the spirit of my statement was around it has to be a agreement at the end of the day. It's an ask and then it has to be an agreement. And so whether it's signed or whether it is, part of the oath or whether it's like, verbal, I think that is the spirit of the comment.
Yeah, and I think I certainly understood it that way. So Mick, I guess what I'm suggesting is that we think about the language existing as a rule, and if it has enough delineation in it, and we can say to ourselves, is the rule being observed? That maybe then there's a separate document that spells out the meaning of decorum and business-like expression. So I don't know. I think the second one is different. Will the council continue the practice of unlimited time for debate? To me, a time limit is something that belongs in a rule.
Yeah, the rule as present, it just, it has the 2 bites, but
Yeah.
not anything about that. I'm sorry, Valerie has her hand up.
Valerie has her hand up. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just wondering, if, there have been times when, the president has delineated a rule and then that rule hasn't been followed multiple times. And then it forces the president to have to decide whether, am I going to follow this rule or not? And I feel like the current description of what it's, we want you to be businesslike and have decorum, but what happens, what does that look like when you're not? And what happens when you aren't, isn't clear to me.
Right.
Right. It reminds me of what Mr. Caesar said about doing your homework last time. Don't, if you read the documentation, some of these questions may not be necessary.
Right.
Yeah, but I think that I think that it's not unethical unless there's a rule that you're breaking. And there's a gray area a lot of times in terms of what is decorum. And I
Right.
think that, perhaps specifying, it shouldn't have to fall to the president of the council to have to say every meeting that this is our rule. And that just is frustrating to everyone involved.
So what are some other ways that the rule could be brought forth? Or the breach of the rule? I mean,
what if there's a timer and when the timer is up, the time is up? I mean, there's no speaking beyond that. I mean, that way you can call somebody out of line when they go beyond their 3 minutes or whatever it may be and just mute. I mean, that's it. Your time is up.
right.
I'm just trying to think of how you run that.
Yeah, because it's also like, do you mute someone mid-sentence? Do you, it's like, it's hard to, but I also feel like maybe there should be a sentence that if there is a continued, I don't know what the word is. If there's a continued
Consent.
if someone, what I want to say is if someone continues to challenge the rules or not
Violate.
follow the rules, like every once in a while, maybe we need to go longer and we don't realize. But if it's like every time, then there needs to be a process outlined by which that is dealt with.
So a repeated violation of rules would, I'm looking for a verb that I can't think of right now, would launch the some sort of a response.
Activate.
Would activate a response that we spell out. Is that the sense of what you're saying, Valerie? You're
Yeah,
mute.
I don't know what that is, but I just
No, I
feel like
understand.
there has to be something. And Mick has his hand up, so he
Yeah,
probably.
no, I see that. I just wanted to see if I captured you correctly. Yeah, Mick, you had something on that.
There's 2 thoughts I had. One, we do, to a certain extent, miss Harry on this, but I remember this coming up once before about enforcement, and that Robert's Rules does have a section on that, but my knowledge of it is not as comprehensive. So, I'm aware, I've been told that there is a section that deals with enforcement. But But, you know, I
Okay.
don't know. So that's something for us to look at. What does Robert's rules have to say about that?
So I was on council back in the day when we all got that little book. Did you get one of those little books, Austin? The little,
I did not. No, I didn't remember getting that. I was looking for one too. My brother got one, but I never got over to get one from him.
oh, we'll make him give it to you.
He
Is
was
that,
he was busy with the snowstorm and stuff like
yeah, I
that.
know. So anyway, I have the little book. So I volunteer to look that up.
Can I just, so it was past practice for council members to get a copy of Robert's rules?
Yeah,
Yes,
there
it
was. Yep, I remember that. My dad got one too back in the
Yeah,
day.
yeah.
Actually, too, so.
And I,
Okay.
yeah,
That
That's
didn't
back
happen.
in the 90s. That was back in the 90s. He got his. So
Okay, so that's something that we could put back into practice as well.
yeah.
or a PDF version of it online. Doesn't necessarily have to be a copy of it. It could be just an online version of it. They're available online.
Yeah. But I will go look up that section and see what it says about enforcement. I like that idea. Okay.
And the other thing I was going to say when we started talking about the separate document, and when Austin said, several pages long for the oath, or maybe it was Kath, it made me think the DTC just, last night they had this platform that I think got a little excessive. But they also have an ethics. I don't know if it's platform or how you describe it, but an ethics statement.
It's
That
called a code of conduct. Yeah.
code of conduct. Thank
Yeah.
you. And that is pretty lengthy, but maybe we could look at something. Just some of the language on there, although lengthy, some of the language was, I think, pretty good. So, and again, I think, perhaps we would hope we live in a world where some of those items would not have to be spelled out. But perhaps it's good that they are very clear. And some of it about, like, I don't know, physical, consent and touching of others, it should not be occurring at council meetings at all. But, maybe I think there's good stuff in there that maybe we could utilize, and then also perhaps think about our ethics board, seeing if they might have some input, just or run it by them, or at least get some input from them on what we develop. That way we're utilizing them. That's what they're there for. So maybe they could. I guess they're there to ensure that ethics complaints, but maybe we could utilize them in this fashion as well. Just throwing that idea out there.
Yeah. So Mick, I just want to let you know, I volunteered to and did follow up on getting a copy of the document that the ethics board had it was rumored they had put out. And it's actually a clarification of the responsibilities of members of the ethics board. And it's treating of attendance expectations, attendance at meeting
Okay.
expectations. So just so you know, I found out what that was all about.
That sounds like it was more an internal document.
Yes, it was more of an internal document. However, I did communicate to the chair of the Board of Ethics and the town attorney that we were interested in having greater clarity about the process of approaching the Board of Ethics for an item for them to consider. So that's how that particular item panned out so far.
Okay. So are we coming to a place where we're kind of agreeing on a separate document that delineates, the concepts that we wish to embrace, and make suggestions about what happens when we don't embrace those ideas?
So I'm feeling like, yes, a separate document that delineates the protocols and codes of conduct that we want to agree to. I think delineating what happens in the breach maybe does belong in the rules. That's just a thought.
Okay.
Valerie, you were going to say something.
I think that makes sense.
You know, it's the difference between a rule and a norm. And I mean, I think we need to arrive at an agreement about what the norms of behavior are. And I'm not quite sure how we got to this place where we don't have that agreement, but we do seem to be there. So maybe the code of conduct makes that more explicit. And again, maybe Robert's rules will have a section on enforcement of protocols. I'll look for that. But do people like the idea of having a separate document that's kind of a statement of agreement?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea.
Sure, definitely.
Okay. All right.
My only question, if I might,
Of course.
is around, I think you kind of mentioned it, Kathleen, around how, so different terms mean different things. And so, so are we going to spell out what different terms mean so we have clarity around it so that enforcement isn't an issue?
Well, I think we are going to try to do that, Adrian. And I think when we draft various things, we will review them carefully so that we can hopefully have enough of a shared agreement about what the words mean. I agree with you. I think there will be a step in the process where we will have to check our language for clarity for, you know, almost everybody. Thank you for that.
It's just that I don't want, you know, there to be confusion around, I can hear it now, someone objecting to you're not acting professional. You know, I'm not sure
Right.
that this is in a line with section B, blah, 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 around professionalism. And then, you know, said person says, well, I'm absolutely being professional, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And like, and as Valerie said, that's you know, a gray line, right? So, and there's also gray lines around, well, I feel threatened because, you know, you're raising your voice. Well, I'm not raising my voice. Just because I'm talking with, you know, some exuberance doesn't mean that I'm, you know, that kind of thing. So how do you like kind of like ensure that, you know, the rules aren't being abused
Yeah.
around those kind of things as well?
Yeah. No, I take that. I take that to heart. And we will have to, you know, we will have to clarify that as we look at draft statements and think about those things. So I appreciate your interest in that. And I'm going to make a note that you might be willing to volunteer to do some reviewing of drafts and point to those things. Adrian, can I make that note?
Sure, I think that's, you know, the purpose of, you know, having, you know, different people on council and diversity, because people hear things differently.
Yeah.
So absolutely.
Thank you very much. So noted. So Mick, do you want to, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to, I'm just texting with some folks. I think as we know, okay, just confirmed. As we know, the police forum was limited last time because of, I don't know whose account it was. But I very generously, I'll say of myself, offered my account for them to help. But that means that they can't run two Zooms at once. So we'll have to a little before 7 have wrapped up, because otherwise people will be trying to get on the police forum.
That's about this meeting. Yeah, so we need
Right.
to have, let's just call it 6:45 and then we can run over.
That
I'm
way
hap-
there's time.
I'm happy to do that. So Mick, do you want to scroll? Your points seem to be generating some good conversation. So,
Want to look at the rest?
yeah,
And we've sort of talked about 11A2, right? Debate, and that'll be something for us to think about. Do we want to continue unlimited time, or or hold it. The other ones, these are more civics clerk specific. The time and place where we are going to have to alter when we make a change to the rules. And we'll have, this will be going back to how we had it previously when I first came on council, where just committee meetings and then council. So some of the language there will have to change. And then same under the regular meetings. So this will be kind of just cleanup language. But then the other thing that'll be that I'm going to have to learn more about is when we change the rules to go back to a committee meeting necessary before being acted on in council. We also tried creating what we refer to as a submission calendar to try to keep better track of submissions to the council. Like, when were they submitted? When did they get acted on? What's their status? That was difficult for us to implement. There was some question as to whether or not this was, work that Kim would be, extra work for not delineated in her labor agreement.
Yeah.
And who would be doing the submission? Would the submission be by the administration or would it be by council? So there were some things to figure out, and then we got COVID. So we never really kind of figured out how this submission calendar would be implemented. The idea is just it helps us if anyone has looked at how the state has, it shows you here, this is in
Yep.
submitted, it's in committee, now it's here, now it's there. We
Yeah.
obviously have a lot fewer steps than the state would. But I'm believing from my discussion so far, with our civics clerk, we kind of fill that purpose.
Yeah.
So most of section 3 would have to be, I didn't even bother putting the language in because it's essentially section 3 would be changed significantly, and also the submission calendar. It was calling for 7 business days, and I think it would be more. I think it would be smarter for us to just do 5 business days. That way we have our week. It sort of makes sense that a week prior to our
Yeah.
council meeting or committee meetings, we would get the submissions to the calendar. And I'm hoping that, we can finally create this thing that conceptually was supposed to just help us all keep track of everything.
Right.
It sounds like civics clerk will just do that for us, which will be awfully nice.
Which is nice. Yeah.
So those are the ones I've identified so far.
Okay, that's great. That's
and
great.
do we want to talk about the timing some more? Do we want to agree that that's something we want to move on, or is that something we want to talk about some more?
What, the timing for the submission calendar?
Or no, for 11, well, both, I guess, for 11A2 about debate, or we've kind of talked about that around and around.
I did make a note, and it'll be in the working notes that I will distribute, that we should think about time limits on debate and how we would handle that.
I think that's the number one issue we have right there, is that it really is beyond anything else, is that being able to be respect each other's time, not interrupting, doing your homework so we're not asking questions that very easy or right in the packet or right in the handout or whatever it may be. I mean, it really has to be a point where we can call somebody out of line if they are just filibustering, just for the sake of making our meetings go along. I mean, that's the number one issue. I mean, I think in terms of, anything with this. So I just wanted to say that would be the biggest issue I have.
So Austin, I took a stab at drafting some guiding principles for our work as a council. And the first one is that we focus on the business allocated to the Legislative Council by town charter and Constitution of the State of Connecticut. I don't know if the Constitution of the State of Connecticut mandates us do anything, but in case it does. So focus on the business allocated to the Legislative Council. The second one is to operate clearly within the separation of powers delineated by our town charter, so that that will involve things like respect for the department heads, and not thinking that they are there to work for us, and that sort of thing. The third one is to focus during meetings on the agenda that is before us as the work of the council, according to the other principles. I'm trying to, they're stacked. And then the fourth one is address one another, town employees and members of the public. I didn't quite get done, but respectfully and with decorum or something like that. And then we unpack what that means. But I began to understand that we needed to think, we needed to have a scope of how the rules get generated. And these seem like some of the basic operating guidelines behind the fact that we need to have rules and we have boundaries. And the point is, the Legislative Council isn't the only working group in town. There are a lot of working groups. There are other regulatory entities. Police Commission, Fire Commission, Planning and Zoning, Inland Wetlands, Zoning Board of Appeals. You know, there are other regulatory commissions. And then there are lots of volunteers that attract professionals who can weigh in on things. So, and then outside of that, there are civic groups that take up very important issues and bring them forth. And the Legislative Council is not the only body that can or should take actions. We have a set of actions that it is incumbent upon us to take. But it's not incumbent upon us to take action on everything that comes up in the entire municipality. We have a mandate and we need to operate within that mandate. And any council person who operates within that mandate they do not automatically become defined or judged as an individual who simply doesn't care about the other things. It's that we want to focus on the work that is given to us to the best of our ability. Valerie.
I think that's a really good point. And I've been thinking about something that I actually started working on today. Because as a part of the Fiscal Stability Committee, we've been working on org charts to try to help us during budget season understand the positions. But a conversation that I had today about some planning and zoning work made me think that it would be really helpful to have a chart for both the public and for future council people, as well as commissioners and the public, that really outlined sort of, these are the places where the work is done for town. And if you have a question about this, then you should go to this.
Yeah.
You know, like these are the goal. This is what the Planning and Zoning Commission does. This is what, you know, for those different regulatory issues that the public might have.
Yeah.
I think this could be really helpful as a document to help folks figure out where to go with their issues.
Yeah.
I
So
agree.
I'm happy to work on a draft of that. And
that would be great. And
Okay.
yeah, and that would, maybe it's a great idea to have a brochure about that, but that also should be very clearly delineated at the town website.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Great idea.
Yeah, I agree. And I think we also at times, we're so used to the way things are now that we have forgotten the reasons that we have these separation of powers. You know, we don't want too much, you know, power influence in any one body.
Right.
You know, and that of course has come about from years and years of, you know, folks tweaking with our charter and coming up against experiences that led to those kinds of changes. I'm sure early on in Hamden, you know, the mayor had, or first select, back in the day, had much more power than they do now. And, you know, planning and zoning, you know, we know that planning and zoning has been developed over the years in inland wetlands to protect people, you know, from overreaching councils or overreaching mayors. So, you know, those are all important things. And just, I think, you know, keeping in mind that we're not designed to move necessarily that quickly or that efficiently, but to move with a separation so that no
Yes,
has all the marbles, as it were.
right. Yeah. Okay. Wow, we've covered a lot of territory here. Austin, thank you for sending the information from CCM, the brochure about model practices for municipal governments. It's a good guide. I did not make it through all 60 some pages yet.
I was just, I didn't either. I just saw the back to which are pretty interesting as well. You get a chance to check that part of it out as well, Kath. And
Okay, yeah,
I didn't get through all of it either, but I think it was just a good guideline that I.
yes. Yeah, it really is. And there are resources in the back that are very interesting. Is that what you just said to me?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, exactly. Yep.
Yeah. So I think we have a good start on this. What do we feel like are the next steps? This is, we've now had two very interesting conversations, and what are our next steps?
I think we have to draft this
Budget
separate
season.
document. I'm
Okay.
sorry, go ahead, Austin.
As they were coming up on budget season now, so I mean, we have to really,
Yeah, we got to get some stuff done before that comes.
exactly. So that
So
way we're not.
draft the separate document, okay? The sort of code of conduct document. We'll use the same language that the town committee used, and we'll hear if the Republicans would like us to call it something else.
That's fine. I'm sure we're good. Don't worry. Just the way it is. So.
Okay. Wow, all of a sudden I can't type. I'll take a stab at that. And who can I send the first stab to, just to tell me what I have completely forgotten from our conversations?
It'll be me, Adrian, or Valerie, I guess, right? So, or Mick, I guess. But I could look it over if you want. If you want to
That'd be great.
Yeah,
I'll do that.
sounds good. I don't want to jump in on if anybody else wants to do it. It's fine. I just
You're the vice chair of the committee, so you can jump in.
all right.
It's just going to be a first stab,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
I'll get it to you. And
I'll make sure that we're on the right page. Everybody's on the right page.
I know you will. Let's see. I'll set a deadline for that later. What else are in our next steps?
Social media, dealing with social media and how people handle themselves on social media, attacking other council people. That was not right. And I like to find a way to make sure that we definitely address that, because we had some, earlier in the year or last year, I guess, some comments.
Yeah. I want to ask you if that can go into the code of conduct document, or is that outside of that?
Well, it's cyberbullying. I mean, it was some of it's cyberbullying. I mean, it really is childlike behavior, if you ask me. I mean, it really, it's not becoming of a council person or a leader of the town who's setting an example. But I don't know where it goes. Probably that,
Okay, so that's great. So I won't have that clarity in the first
Okay.
stab. So you'll add that when I send that to you.
Okay.
Any other next steps?
Speaking to Valerie's, her organizational chart, I was looking through the charter, and it's interesting how when it delineates, like, okay, there will be a town clerk as required by the general statutes of the state of Connecticut, and that pretty much starts almost everything that is that is created. The language is in there quite a bit. So I think that'll be interesting that, something, maybe that's a real deep dive that we don't have to necessarily take. But, a lot of the powers and responsibilities for our different departments are actually set forth in the state statutes as well. So,
Right.
that's a lot, but, it is perhaps to help people understand why we have these separations as well. But
So maybe part of the organizational chart of town entities that are responsible for various things, maybe all it does is refer people to the appropriate source for, we can say, see the charter to understand responsibilities of, and then give a list. And, it's not, we can just note that.
Yeah.
And then the idea is that that's, the council only deals with that when we get something to fund some of that work, or make an appointment for someone to do that work, or manage a staffing budget for that department to do that work, those kinds of things, so that there's a little more clarity about that.
yeah, and our department heads have they have duties and responsibilities delineated not by our charter but by state statutes.
Yeah.
They have responsibilities not only to the town but to the state as well, and that's that's a high standard that they have to accept.
Right. So is this chart that we want to put out to clarify where people can go in town for various things? For example, if you want to appeal your tax assessment, you go to the Zoning Board of Appeals, or what, I get those two confused, the Board of Appeals and the assessment hearing. But anyway, so is that the chart we want to put out, where we're guiding people to various places in town that are outside of paid government officials, and then steer them to the charter and possibly to state statutes for responsibilities that have to be borne by department heads, so that they understand that they might not like what they see somebody doing, but unless that charter is changed or that state requirement is changed, that person is bound to pursue that course of action. And that's not something that we can change as a council. That would have to be changed by charter or by state legislation, because that way it helps us to further delineate the boundaries of what we need to talk about in council. And I'm feeling like we have some boundary issues.
I'm amazed by sometimes the questions that come up. I'm not trying to be critical, but it's like,
Yeah.
gotten on the phone and made a phone call or done an email if they wanted to and checked, on something,
Yeah.
versus taking the time of everybody to deal with an issue. It really tends to be monotonous once in a while.
So Valerie, you've gone dark, but are we dancing around the spirit of what you were suggesting before?
For the chart.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's exactly right. But I think, we can send people to the charter, but the charter is not easy to dive into. So I feel like I'm a very
visual page
person.
number. We could put a page number.
I can put a page number, but I think I want to figure.
Okay. All right.
Like,
so,
it's easy to fit. Like, you just look at it and you're like, oh, okay.
Do you want to take the first stab at drafting this? Because you seem to have an image of it.
Yeah, I'll make the figure.
Okay.
And
make the figure.
And then, yeah, and then we'll see if you guys can let me know if it's helpful.
Yeah.
I think that could be really helpful for just members of the public kind of understanding this vast organization that is the town of Hamden.
Right.
Yeah, I agreed.
Bureaucracy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I will feel good if we can clarify what the work of the council is and how it is not everything. And it has, there's a little bit of a fence around it, so that we can focus on our business. Okay, that's great. So we have a couple of follow-ups. This organizational chart. And the draft code of conduct. That's KS, and then it goes to Austin. And then I'm going to find the section in Robert's rules about enforcement. And then Mick, we need you to just keep clarifying what's going to arise by way of rulemaking related to Civics Plus.
Will do.
Yeah. And Adrian, when Austin and I have massaged the code of conduct, we're going to send it to you.
I'll be happy to read it.
That's great. Thank you. So everybody has a little something to do here. Valerie and Adrian, that's what you get for showing up. And thank you for that. Maybe we should just expand the committee. We already said it. Maybe you don't want to be on the committee. You just want to do this part. I think, does anybody have anything else that we need to talk about tonight? I mean, we don't need to keep meeting if we feel complete with our work.
Can I ask a question around, do I need to raise my hand? Hold on.
No, go right ahead, Adrian.
Okay. Where do we land on the timeline, the time frame for the questioning? Did we land anywhere on that?
Time frame for questioning. I don't understand. I'm sorry. I'm fuzzy on what you're trying to ask about.
Sure. So Austin was saying that he thinks the biggest thing that we need to accomplish is putting a time frame.
Oh, time on debate, time limits on debate.
Sure.
We're just holding that as a question at this point.
Adrian, I had a chance to just look at something about that topic for one quick second. Just noticed that in Robert's rule, it says that if the board has no rules on length of speech, Robert sets the limit at 10 minutes. So it's actually in the Robert's Rule of Order that it's no more than 10 minutes. So, I mean, you could actually see that unless we have another rule in place, Adrian. So that's why I was referencing that. I didn't mean to jump in, Adrian. I just want to make sure.
No, I appreciate it. Yep.
You know where I was going with it. There actually is a rule about 10 minutes, no more than 10 minutes.
I think we have something in here. I was looking at this earlier. Let me see if I can find it.
Well, I think we have a practicing rule anyway, which is 2 bites at the apple.
Yeah.
But then 2 bites can go for an hour and a half, though.
No, I'm just pointing out. I'm just speaking
Yeah.
to the rule.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, and the problem that we're trying to deal with is that we've had far too many late meetings, and we know that we don't do our best work if we let the meetings go on and on and on. So I will find that. It's in here somewhere. I'm not gonna sit here and try to flip through our existing standing rules, but I will find what the current rule is on that, and I will have a note on that for the next meeting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And one last question. So the committee makes the recommendations, we bring it to the body votes on it. Is that what
Correct.
happened? Yeah.
Correct.
So is there this where, I just want, can I just speak to this time thing for a second? Is that all right?
Sure.
All right. So is there a desired time that we hope our meetings will last? Like, do we hope that our meetings last for 2 hours? Like, and that's like a real desired time? Is there a
So
standard?
I'll take a first stab at that, because I was on council for 5 or 6, I've lost track, 5 terms at least. This might be my 6th. I was off for a term. And it was a special deal if the meeting went over about 2.5 to 3 hours. That was a long meeting. There were a lot of meetings that were an hour or an hour and a half. It was a red letter day if it had to go till 11 or 12 o'clock. That only happened once or twice a year. Since I've been on this term, 11 o'clock meetings have been very frequent. And that sort of says to me that there's something wrong with how we're spending our time. So that's sort of part of the impetus for figuring this out. But I think 2 hours is good. I mean, think about it. There's a lot of research on attention span and what the human brain can deal with. College courses are 45 to 50 minutes by design. Longer seminar classes might be 3 hours with a break at an hour and a half. I mean, labor union contracts say that if you work an 8-hour day, you're due a 15-minute break in each half of the day. So there's some collected social wisdom about what's optimum for human beings to be on task. And to be productive and focused and efficient and able to deal with it. So I like your notion that 2 hours is probably a decent target.
So, okay. I'm going to ask probably a series of questions, and anybody just take a stab at it for me. Thank you, Kat. I certainly appreciate your answer there.
That's okay.
So 2 hours, okay, we'll say on average, we hope that that's the time for a meeting. By the way, were those meetings that we talked about being, after 11, 3 hours long, were those budget season meetings?
Let me just tell you, Adrian, we voted on our final budget last year at 1:30 a.m. the next morning after starting final deliberations at 7 p.m. the evening before.
Mm-hmm.
That's just plain wrong.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So the only reason I ask is because how I feel like I understand, and I could not understand because I certainly wasn't there, is that the issues around the budget pretty complex. And so we have like a finite amount of time to complete the budget. And so with that being said, I would imagine that there are quite a few questions around, trying to understand and not make a mistake around the budget, considering how fragile it is right now. Is that fair to say?
So who wants to respond to that?
I would say yes. And I do think it's not just budget nights that got lengthy. It was a lot of different things.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I would say for good reason. After the police shooting, I essentially people could just come and talk, right? Mm-hmm. And I think value to that. I think we all hope that never occurs again, but if it did, I do think there's a social value to saying, we're here to listen, come and speak, and we'll take all the time you need. And hopefully those evenings are very few and far between. So I do think, I don't know if I would say that we're always going to look to say, hey, this is a 2-hour meeting, this is a 3-hour, but just keep things moving along efficiently. There are going to be times we're going to have to go late. And I do think that we should have built into the system plenty of time for committees to do their work. And if, another committee meeting is necessary, that's why I like the 3-week process. So if in week 1, a committee's working and working and working and they're just not getting to it, okay, we can schedule a special committee meeting during the second committee week and then bring it to the full council. But I think here the idea is that in the full council meeting, where all the committees come together, this can go on for, it has gone on for a long time. And we do start to lose focus and we do start to get grumpy with each other. That's happened a couple times, full disclosure. And we're not at our best by any stretch of the imagination. So I think that's part of the effort here. And I do think, there are going to be times, especially around the budget season, because there's a lot, we do line item budgeting, which is, a difficult thing for us to do. It's a big responsibility. There has been some discussion by the Charter Review Commission of changing some of the council's responsibilities and authority when it comes to the budget. And that might be a welcome change. Something else for us to consider. If we did adopt like a Board of Finance type of model, we would have some less, it would be a little less onerous on the council, but that's in the future, of course.
So, yeah.
Answering your question, Adrian, I'm sorry.
Yes. So, and I know we have to go, and we have to hop, but I think you're kind of driving at, my point, in that efficiencies certainly need to be put in place to make our meetings run much smoother. And I think that some rules can be put in place with the spirit of trying to move the meetings along. However, there are some issues and topics that will require quite a bit of questioning, I would imagine, budgets, or i.e. what you just said about, the shooting and so forth, right? So I get all of that. I like, a scenario, again, where we like really concentrate and kind of just like, button down on what, like, okay, there's multiple splits of the pie. I think that, so I hear people saying that where there's not enough homework being done. I hear filibustering. I said last week that I think that sometimes we spend too much time speaking to the great works when we can sum it up a little faster with a tremendous word that encompasses all the great things that people do and so forth. So there's multiple ways to kind of split the pie up around making things more efficient. And so I also believe that if we're going to, if I think that if we have, and the reason I ask about the time in terms of how long we want the meeting to go, and we split those by every council person has, let's say, 20 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever the case may be. And if that council person does not want to say anything, they can clearly, we don't have to dig so deep into it right now, but they can submit their time to another person. And if you don't submit your time to another person and you choose not to, then you keep the time and then we get out a little earlier. So I just think there's ways that we can put processes in place by really taking a deep dive look at the things that drag our meetings out.
Thank you, Adrian. I want to let Austin weigh in here because he's got a lot of experience with council and Board of Education.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Kath. I agree 100% with what Adrian's saying, absolutely, about efficiency and trying to make it run as smoothly as possible, but also recognizing the need to go in depth with things. I think it's important. I do think that, keeping a Robert's Rule of Order in mind of 10 minutes, I think something like that, I think would help the meeting a lot. Being able to extend it, I guess, if we wanted to, because of certain circumstances we're under, whatever it may be, like a shooting or whatever it may be, going longer than that, I get it. But I mean, just general council business should be no more than 10 minutes per council person. I mean, sometimes it's repetitive and repetitive and repetitive, and it's the same thing over and over and over again. And quite frankly, the chair can call them out and say, you've already said this 3 times, you need to move on and not repeat over and over and over again. So just a rule about 10 minutes, I think would be helpful. And, that's important. Kath, I agree with you. I mean, these meetings go way too long. I was in the council from 2011, 2017, took a 2-year break like you, came back. I don't ever remember Judy Kozak's meetings going beyond 10 o'clock maybe, or
No,
Jim's, or Mick, you're doing your best you can. You got a different council. I get that. I totally get that. It's not you. It's a
People
different.
like seeing this face. What can I say?
No, it's just, it's a different council. You're not dealing with the same situations they dealt with, but it's just, I went to the council when my dad was, when dad was on there, as like a little kid watching it. We were always out of there by 9:30, 10 o'clock. I mean, we got the business done. We came home. I mean, it was the way it was, So, I mean, I don't know. We just need to have some sort of time limits, because some people just take advantage of it. And we're working during the day, and we come home, we go to council meetings, we are working the next day. I gotta be in my classroom at 7 o'clock. I mean, really, sometimes we're there at 1 o'clock in the morning. It's not fair.
yeah.
So I mean, something's got to be done about the time limits. I mean, I think that's really the crust of what we're talking about here. But I'm
And-
rambling now. So
So,
Well, in
so
some
Adrian-
conversation, I'm sorry, go ahead, Kath.
I just want to chime in. So Adrian, one of the challenges is that the personal time investment in preparing for the meetings is something that members need to be willing to make. And I'm not going to say that I'm fully prepared on every item all the time, but what I've learned over time is that other members of the council, like members of committees that item goes through, will be more prepared. And then I know how to listen and learn from what they bring forward. And that's the collaboration that we do as a council. And then there'll be items that I will be way over prepared on because they're in my field of expertise or in my committee. And so that preparation is very important. And I get really frustrated when a council member opens the questioning with something that's on page 1 of the documentation, which indicates that they've not even scanned it or looked at it. And I feel like that is a waste of my time and every other member of the council. And I resent when that happens. Now, have I asked a dumb question like that occasionally? Yes. And have figured out that I better not do that again.
well, also it's unfair to the mayoral administration is being told they're not being transparent when people aren't even reading the materials. I mean, or reading what's being sent to us as well, too. I mean, you hear the argument, oh, you're not being transparent enough. Well, you're not even reading the material. It's in the material. It's in the documents that are being sent to us. You have to read it. You have to take time. I mean, Marjorie and I always talk about jokingly Sunday afternoon. Hey, did you read your material? Yep, I read the material. What do you think? We go through that all the time, Marjorie and I. In terms of back and forth and banter and stuff, and Betty as well. I mean, I do my reading Sunday afternoon. I look at what I got. I come up with my questions. If I have questions, I ask them, and that's it. I'm not trying to find ways to throw a wrench into everything all the time. That's what it seems like some people have an agenda for, and it's wrong. It really is wrong. But I'm done filibustering.
That's not filibustering. Thank you, Austin. And Mick, I think there's a connection to the time of the meetings. There's a connection to the submission calendar. We want to work with an administration that has a real sense of things that are going to require a whole lot of conversation because they're controversial or they're new and people won't understand them the first time. And those shouldn't all come on the same week.
That was the original concept of the submission calendar, was to say, hey, we know this thing's coming. We know it's going to be lots of questions, whether it's a transfer, whether it's a overtime request or whatever. So we could have it on the calendar and say, okay, we're not acting on, it's not going on the agenda for 2 meetings, but there it is. You can see it's a request that's been submitted, and that way it's on everybody's radar, so it doesn't come up as a surprise. I've been disappointed for the past literally year and a half that weren't really able to make that thing actual, and I think part of it was just logistics. Clerk is a submission calendar. That's one of the things that really excites me about it, is that we can track these items so much better. Say, okay, here it is, and here's the process, and I'm hoping that it'll I'm hoping that it'll do the things we want. And just thinking about, the stuff that Adrian was saying, maybe, as we think about this, one thing I'm thinking about is follow-up. you know, and trying to keep track of time, how that'll work logistically. So maybe two times of 5 minutes each. You know, I kind of like the 10 minute, 10 minutes is a long time. But if we have two of five, because, Brita made a really good point, when Kamala Harris was, asking questions of the attorney general, she only had 5 minutes and she's a senator. But I also think, as conversation goes on, you might come up with a second, like, hey, something I didn't think of and want that second go around. So yeah, try to think of ways to do this.
Can Rose be at our meetings as a timekeeper so Kim isn't responsible for sort of keeping track of that? I mean, is there a way to build that in?
We're gonna try to work on that. Kim has like a dual role. There's her town job, and technically she's an employee of the council. She's
Right.
clerk of the council. So that's a little, we'd have to work that out. Also am getting mindful of time because
Yeah, no, I'm watching it. I'm watching it.
I was nervous because school building meets as well. And
I
I'm like,
missed-
there could be 3 meetings on my account, but Julie Smith is taking care of school building and Walter will take care of
Yeah, I just want to,
it.
I just want to chime in. 5 minutes, 10 minutes per council person with 15 council people is 150 minutes. A quick arithmetic, which I'm sometimes good at, tells me that's 2.5 hours. Now, if everybody gets 10 minutes on every item, and we have 10 items, what's 10 times 2.5? That's 25 hours. That's a 25-hour meeting. So we really have to think about, we really have to think seriously, because one of the challenges we're having is, and this is simple observation, there are some council members who feel like they need to speak on every item. So Adrian, one of the practices that is really a respectable solution for this is, let's say, Adrian, that you have spoken and Austin has spoken, and I want to be recognized as agreeing with this item. I'm going to put my hand up. Mick's going to call on me, and I can say, I wholeheartedly concur, and I'm done. And I'm on the record. I'm recorded. I concur. But we haven't been using the I concur practice, and we need to bring that forward.
Or the accommodation. Same, I said that last week. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, Barita brought that up because Joe McDonough told us. So I'm just
Mhm.
we want to keep repeating that so we don't
Yep.
forget.
Yep.
So anyway, so time limit for me is 2 things. It's per speaking turn, and it's time limit on items. And some items should only need 10 minutes. I know I've run a lot of meetings, community meetings in my life, and I have put time limits on each item on the agenda. It's considered a very good practice. And you can go over if you need to, but when you see an agenda and you have a 2-minute item, because it's a reappointment, so maybe it's a 1-minute item, and then you get to something else and you think it's a 15-minute item, but people surprise you, so then you've gotten 5 minutes back.
Could the council president do that himself and just set it as well, I'll put up the floor for 2 minutes per council person on this item, and that's it. And then just move, if it's a 10-minute item, like you said, you move it to 10 minutes or 8 minutes, whatever it may be, at the purview of the council president. If it's just an appointment of somebody, I'll open up the floor for 2 minutes per council person on this appointment. If it's a major budget issue, I'll open up the floor for 10 minutes per council person on this issue. Does it have to be a set number for everything, or what's the way to make that work? And I interrupted you, Kath. I apologize.
No, I don't know. And I was actually talking about a time limit for the item, not
okay.
per council person.
Okay.
Because a 1 minute per council person for an appointment is 15 minutes. And so, I'm very serious about this. I don't know if this is a practice that would work for us, but there are large, efficient groups who run their meetings with time limits on each item. They're out there in the world and they're doing great work. So, and that's,
That's a good thought. Something to think about.
Now, I am also, it's 6:47. Adrian, do you feel like you have been able to air what you want to say? I can't see your face, so I can't tell if you want to say something else.
No, I think that this conversation obviously is much bigger than the time limit that we have right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah,
And so I think that we should table it and, you know, double back to it at a later date.
it is in the notes and we won't lose it. It's a very important question and it's noted as such. And thank you for airing your thoughts about that. Austin, anything else before we adjourn?
No, I'm good. I really appreciate tonight. I think it was a great discussion. Well said, Madam Chair. Thank you for your work, and
Sure.
I enjoy being part of this, and I enjoyed the discussion. Thank you.
Good. Council President McGarry, anything else from you before we sign off?
I concur with what Austin said.
I'm going to adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much. I'm going to adjourn the meeting at 6:48 p.m. Back to your evenings or your meetings, whatever's up. Bye for now.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.